The mining colony of Kepler 442b had been silent for 3 weeks. Captain Elena Vasquez stared at the endless reports scrolling across her command screen aboard the rescue vessel Terra's Hope. Every communication attempt with the colony had failed. The last transmission was garbled, mentioning something about a white death stalking the settlement. "Captain, we're picking up life signs," reported Lieutenant Chen from the sensor station. "Faint, but definitely human. Maybe a dozen survivors scattered across the colony perimeter." Elena nodded grimly. Kepler 442b was supposed to be a paradise world, rich in rare minerals, breathable atmosphere, and no dangerous predators according to the initial surveys. The 800 colonists who had arrived 6 months ago were meant to establish humanity's most profitable mining operation outside the Sol system. The shuttle bay doors hissed open as Elena's team prepared for descent. Dr. Sarah Martinez, the expedition's xenobiologist, checked her equipment for the 5th time. "The atmospheric readings are still normal," she said, more to herself than anyone else. "Whatever happened down there, it wasn't environmental." Sergeant Rodriguez, their military escort, secured his pulse rifle. "Could be raiders. Pirates have been getting bolder in this sector." Elena shook her head. "No ship signatures, no debris fields. This is something else entirely." The shuttle descended through Kepler 442b's orange-tinted atmosphere. Below them stretched endless forests of crystalline trees that sparkled like diamonds in the alien sunlight. The beauty of the world made the mystery more unsettling. This should have been humanity's crown jewel, not a graveyard. The colony came into view as they broke through the cloud layer. Buildings stood intact, solar arrays still functioning, vehicles parked neatly in designated areas. Everything looked normal except for one crucial detail. There were no people anywhere. "Landing zone is clear," reported the pilot, "but Captain, you need to see this." Through the viewport, Elena saw them. Massive paw prints in the soft earth around the landing pad. Each print was nearly a meter wide, with claw marks that had gouged deep furrows in the packed soil. "Those prints," Dr. Martinez whispered, her face pale. "They're fresh. Maybe hours old." As they landed, the team's instruments immediately picked up movement in the nearby forest. Something large was watching them from between the crystalline trees. Elena caught a glimpse of white through her binoculars, a flash of ivory fur that seemed to absorb the alien sunlight. "Movement, 2 o'clock!" Rodriguez called out, his weapon ready. "Whatever it is, it's big." The team established a perimeter around their shuttle as they began investigating the colony. The first building they entered was the communications center. Banks of equipment hummed quietly, all systems operational. But the floor was covered in those same massive paw prints, and deep claw marks scored the metal walls. Dr. Martinez ran her scanner along the claw marks. "These cuts are precise, not random slashing." Whatever made these was intelligent. In the colony's main computer, they found the security footage from 3 weeks ago. The recordings showed colonists going about their normal routines, until the first night when everything changed. The creature appeared on camera like a ghost. Pure white fur covered a feline body the size of an ancient earth saber-toothed tiger, but far more muscular. Its eyes glowed with an inner light that seemed almost hypnotic. When it moved, it flowed like liquid mercury, silent despite its enormous size. "Look at this," Elena pointed to the screen. "The colonists aren't running. They're just standing there." The footage showed colonists walking calmly toward the creature, their faces blank and peaceful. One by one, they approached the white panther and simply vanished. Not eaten, not torn apart. They just disappeared as if the creature had somehow absorbed them. Over the following days, the pattern repeated. The white panther would appear. Colonists would walk toward it in a trance-like state, and they would vanish. Within a week, the entire colony was empty. Psionic predator, Dr. Martinez concluded, her voice shaking. It's using some form of mental control. As if summoned by her words, a deep, rumbling growl echoed through the communications building. Outside, they could see the white panther standing at the edge of the clearing. It was even more massive than the footage had suggested, easily 3 meters long and 2 meters tall at the shoulder. Its white fur seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly energy. Nobody look directly at it, Elena ordered. If it's psionic, eye contact might trigger the hypnosis. But as they prepared to retreat to their shuttle, something unexpected happened. A small figure emerged from the forest behind the creature. It was a human child, maybe 8 years old, with tangled brown hair and wearing a torn colony jumpsuit. The girl walked directly toward the white panther without fear. Instead of the hypnotic trance they had witnessed in the security footage, she moved with purpose and determination. When she reached the creature, she didn't disappear. Instead, she sat down against its massive flank and began to stroke its fur. "What the hell?" Rodriguez lowered his weapon in confusion. The white panther, this terror that had consumed an entire colony, lay down gently and allowed the small human child to use its body as a pillow. Its glowing eyes, which had seemed so menacing moments before, now appeared almost protective as it watched over the girl. Elena felt her worldview shifting. This wasn't just a predator, this was something far more complex. And somehow this one human child had formed a bond with it that defied everything they thought they understood about the creature. "We need to make contact," Elena decided, carefully. As they approached, the white panther's head turned toward them. Its eyes met Elena's, and for a moment, she felt the pull. A gentle tugging at her consciousness, an invitation to simply let go and join the peaceful oblivion that had claimed the colonists. But the child spoke, her voice clear and strong despite her obvious exhaustion. "It's okay. Snow won't hurt you if you don't try to hurt it first." The psionic pressure vanished instantly. The white panther, Snow as the child had named it, continued to watch them but made no aggressive moves. Elena knelt down a safe distance from the pair. "What's your name, sweetie?" "Maya," the girl replied, not moving from her position against Snow's side. "Maya Chen. My parents worked in the geology lab." "Maya, what happened to everyone else?" The girl's expression grew sad but not frightened. Snow was hungry, not for food, for something else, the sadness and fear that people carry. Most grown-ups have so much sadness that when Snow takes it away, they go with it. But children, we don't have as much to take. Dr. Martinez stepped forward slowly. "Maya, are you saying this creature feeds on negative emotions?" Maya nodded. "Snow showed me. It comes from a place where there's too much sadness, too much fear. It was trying to help people by taking their pain away, but it doesn't understand that the pain is part of what makes us human." Elena felt pieces clicking into place. The colonists hadn't been killed. They had been absorbed into some kind of collective consciousness, their negative emotions consumed until there was nothing left of their individual identities. "But you're still here," Elena observed. "Why didn't it affect you?" Maya smiled, the first genuine expression of happiness they had seen since landing. "Because I wasn't afraid, and because I was lonely too. Snow and I, we take care of each other now." As if in response, the white panther's massive head lowered and it began to purr, a sound like distant thunder that somehow conveyed deep contentment. Elena realized they weren't dealing with a simple predator or even a psionic threat. They had encountered something that challenged humanity's understanding of consciousness, emotion, and the bonds that could form between vastly different species. The question now was what to do about it. Snow was clearly dangerous to most humans, but Maya had found a way to coexist with it. And judging by the creature's protective posture around the girl, it had formed a genuine emotional attachment to her. "Dr. Martinez," Elena said quietly, "I need you to run every scan you can on both of them. We need to understand how this bond works. As the xenobiologist began her readings, Elena noticed something else in the security footage they had overlooked before. In the final days before the colony went silent, some of the colonists had shown signs of unusual peace and contentment. Their work productivity had actually increased, and incidents of conflict had dropped to zero. Perhaps Snow's feeding wasn't entirely destructive. Maybe it was more like a symbiosis gone wrong. A creature trying to help humans by removing their psychological burdens, but not understanding that those burdens were integral to human identity. The White Panther shifted slightly, careful not to disturb Maya, and fixed Elena with its glowing gaze. This time, instead of the hypnotic pull, she felt something else. A sense of curiosity, intelligence, and perhaps even a desire to communicate. Elena made a decision that would change everything. Instead of calling for military backup to contain or destroy the creature, she decided to try something that only humans would be crazy enough to attempt. She would try to establish diplomatic contact with a being that had accidentally committed genocide while trying to help. "Maya," she said gently, "do you think Snow would be willing to talk to us? Really talk, not just the feeding thing?" Maya looked up at the White Panther, and some wordless communication passed between them. Snow's purring grew louder, and Maya nodded. "Snow wants to learn," she said. "It wants to understand why helping hurt so many people. It's been very sad since the colony became quiet." Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the alien world's temperature. If Snow could feel sadness about what it had done, then it wasn't just intelligent. It was capable of genuine emotion and moral reasoning. They weren't dealing with a monster, they were dealing with a person. Dr. Martinez's scanners revealed something that defied conventional understanding of biology. Snow's brain patterns showed neural pathways that existed in 11 dimensions, far beyond the three-dimensional neural networks of Earth-based life. But more startling was Maya's scan. Her neural activity had begun to mirror Snow's in certain regions, creating a bridge between their consciousness that allowed genuine communication. "It's not telepathy exactly," Dr. Martinez explained, as the team gathered around their portable lab equipment. "It's more like emotional resonance. Maya can sense Snow's feelings and intentions, and Snow can understand her emotional state in return." Elena watched as Maya sat comfortably against Snow's massive side, occasionally reaching up to scratch behind one of the creature's ears. The White Panther's response was remarkably cat-like, despite its enormous size. It would lean into her touch and purr with a sound that vibrated through the ground. "Maya, can you ask Snow where it came from?" Elena requested. Maya placed both hands on Snow's fur and closed her eyes. After a moment, her expression changed, becoming distant and filled with an ancient sadness that no 8-year-old should carry. "Snow comes from the deep dark," Maya said, her voice taking on an odd cadence. "A place between stars where consciousness goes when it dies. But not the good consciousness, only the hurt, frightened parts that can't let go." She opened her eyes, shaking off the strange demeanor. Snow was born from all the sadness of people who died in space. Explorers who never made it home, colonists who died alone, soldiers who fell in battles nobody remembers. All that sadness gathered together and became alive. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. If Maya was right, Snow wasn't just an alien predator. It was a manifestation of humanity's collective grief, made manifest. "But Snow doesn't want to hurt anyone," Maya continued. "It sees all the sadness that living people carry and wants to help take it away. It doesn't understand that taking away all the sadness makes people empty." Dr. Martinez looked up from her readings. "Captain, I'm detecting massive energy signatures from the direction of the forest. Something's coming." Through the crystalline trees, they could see movement. More white shapes emerged from the shadows. Other creatures like Snow, but smaller and less substantial, as if they were still forming. Elena counted at least a dozen, with more appearing every minute. "Snow's family," Maya said simply. "They've been waiting to see if humans are worth helping." The new arrivals moved with the same flowing grace as Snow, but Elena could see they were different. Some had the translucent quality of beings not quite fully formed in this reality. Others bore strange markings or variations in their white fur that suggested they had absorbed different types of emotional energy. One of the newcomers approached slowly. It was smaller than Snow, but emanated an aura of profound wisdom. Maya stood up to greet it, and the creature lowered its head to touch noses with her in a gesture that was unmistakably affectionate. "That's Echo," Maya explained. "Echo understands words better than the others. It was born from the loneliness of people who tried to communicate across the void, but were never heard." Echo's glowing eyes fixed on Elena, and suddenly she could hear something. Not words exactly, but concepts flowing directly into her mind. Images of vast starships drifting empty through space, of colonists on distant worlds crying out for contact with Earth that never came, of explorers dying with their discoveries unknown. But beneath the sadness, Elena sensed something else: hope. These beings had been drawn to humanity not as predators, but as potential healers. They genuinely wanted to help, but they lacked understanding of how human consciousness worked. "They're willing to learn," Elena realized, speaking the thought aloud. Maya nodded enthusiastically. "Snow and Echo have been trying to figure out how to help people without making them disappear. That's why Snow let me stay, to learn from me." Lieutenant Chen, who had been monitoring communications, looked up from his equipment. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Colonial Authority. Fleet Admiral Harrison wants a full report. He's mobilizing the 7th Battle Group to, quote, neutralize the threat to human expansion." Elena's heart sank. A battle group meant 20 ships armed with enough firepower to sterilize the planet's surface. The Colonial Authority had clearly decided Snow and its kind were too dangerous to allow to exist. "How long until they arrive?" Elena asked. 18 hours, ma'am." Maya's connection with Snow had allowed her to understand the exchange. The girl's face went pale, and Snow's purring stopped abruptly. Around them, the other white creatures began to stir restlessly. "They're scared," Maya whispered. "Snow's kind have been hurt by weapons before. The fear pain is the worst kind for them to experience." Elena made a decision that could end her career, but she knew it was right. "Chen, send a message to Admiral Harrison. Tell him the threat has been neutralized through diplomatic contact. Request permission to establish a research station instead of military action." "Ma'am, if you're wrong about this—" "I'm not wrong," Elena said firmly. "Dr. Martinez, how long would it take to establish a basic communication protocol between humans and Snow's species?" The xenobiologist looked thoughtful. "If Maya's neural bridge is replicable, maybe weeks. But there's a problem. The process seems to require a specific type of personality. Maya succeeded because she was lonely but not broken by it. Most adults carry too much accumulated psychological damage." "What about children?" Elena asked. "Other young colonists who might have survived?" Maya brightened. "There are others. 3 kids are hiding in the old mining tunnels. Snow told me about them but didn't want to scare them by approaching. They've been eating emergency rations and drinking from the underground stream." Elena felt a surge of relief. More survivors meant more hope and possibly more potential bridges between species. Over the next several hours, they located the 3 remaining children, twins aged 10 named Alex and Sarah Petrova, and a 12-year-old boy named Marcus Williams. All 3 were scared but unharmed, having hidden when the disappearances began. When Elena brought them to meet Snow and the other white creatures, something remarkable happened. While the children were initially frightened, their fear faded quickly when they saw Maya's obvious comfort with Snow. Within an hour, all 4 children were sitting among the white panthers, each forming their own tentative connections. "It's working," Dr. Martinez reported, monitoring the neural activity. "Each child is developing their own communication pathway. The creatures are learning to modulate their emotional absorption to avoid overwhelming human consciousness." As the sun began to set on Kepler 442b, painting the crystalline forest in shades of gold and crimson, Elena watched something unprecedented unfold. Human children and beings born from humanity's deepest sorrows were learning to understand each other. But their peaceful moment was interrupted by the arrival of Chen with urgent news. "Captain, Admiral Harrison has rejected your request. The 7th Battle Group is maintaining course. ETA is now 14 hours, and ma'am, they're not planning to land. Orders are for orbital bombardment to ensure complete elimination of the threat." Elena felt the weight of an impossible decision. She could evacuate her team and the children, but that would mean abandoning Snow and its kind to destruction. Or she could stay and try to find a solution that would convince the colonial authority that these beings were allies, not enemies. Maya looked up at her with eyes far too wise for her age. "Snow knows about the ships coming," she said quietly. "It can sense the fear and anger from the humans on board. Snow's kind could hide in the deep dark until the danger passes." "But they won't," Elena realized. "They can't abandon the children who have bonded with them." Maya nodded. "And we can't leave Snow. It would be like leaving family." Elena looked around at the impossible scene, human children sitting peacefully among creatures of living sadness, both species learning from each other in ways that would revolutionize humanity's understanding of consciousness and emotion. She had 14 hours to find a way to save them all. 14 hours to prove that humanity's greatest strength wasn't its weapons or technology, but its ability to form bonds across impossible differences. The white panthers began to purr in unison as the alien stars appeared overhead. And Elena made her choice. She would not let fear destroy the most important first contact in human history. "Chen, open a channel to the Terra's Hope. We're going to need some help." Elena's plan was audacious and completely unprecedented in human military history. Using the Terra's Hope's advanced communication array, she established a direct link to every major news network, scientific institution, and government body in human space. If the colonial authority wanted to destroy Snow and its kind, they would have to do it in front of the entire human race. "Dr. Martinez, I need you to document everything," Elena ordered, as her team worked frantically to set up the broadcast equipment. Neural scans, communication protocols, evidence of intelligence and emotional capacity make it impossible for anyone to claim these beings are just animals. The xenobiologist nodded, her fingers flying over her instruments. "Already on it. The data I'm collecting here will rewrite every textbook on consciousness and interspecies contact." Maya sat with Snow in the center of the crystalline clearing, the other children arranged around them with their bonded panthers. The white creatures seemed to understand the gravity of the situation. Their usual playful interactions with the children had taken on a more formal, dignified quality. "Snow wants to talk to all the humans watching," Maya announced. "It wants to explain what really happened." Elena activated the broadcast array. Across human space, on colony worlds and space stations, in universities and government chambers, millions of people suddenly found themselves watching a live feed from Kepler 442b. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the rescue vessel Terra's Hope," she began, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was about to attempt. "What you are about to see will challenge everything we thought we knew about consciousness, death, and the bonds that connect all thinking beings." Maya placed her hands on Snow's massive head and closed her eyes. When she spoke again, her voice carried harmonics that seemed to resonate from somewhere beyond physical reality. "I am snow," she said, though the words came from Maya's throat. "I am born from the last thoughts of those who died alone among the stars. I am every explorer who never returned, every colonist who perished on hostile worlds, every soldier who fell defending those they loved." The camera captured Snow's glowing eyes as Maya continued to serve as its voice. "I see the living carry the same sadness that birthed me. Pain, loss, fear of being forgotten. I wanted to help. I wanted to take away the hurt. But I did not understand that hurt and joy are woven together in living minds. To remove one is to destroy both." Across the broadcasting network, Elena could see viewer numbers climbing into the hundreds of millions. The colonial authority couldn't stop the signal without appearing tyrannical to their own people. "The small one taught me," Snow continued through Maya. "She showed me that sadness shared is sadness halved, while sadness taken away leaves emptiness. She taught me to touch minds gently, to heal without consuming." Dr. Martinez stepped into view, her scientific instruments clearly visible. "I can confirm that these beings are highly intelligent, emotionally sophisticated, and capable of genuine moral reasoning. They're not predators. They're healers who need to learn better techniques." The other children began to speak as well, their bonded panthers adding their own voices to the chorus. Through Alex and Sarah, the twin panthers known as Dawn and Dusk spoke of their desire to help humanity process grief and trauma without losing individual identity. Through Marcus, the ancient panther called Memory shared visions of human heroes whose courage had helped birth new life from the sadness of their deaths. Elena watched the viewer statistics with growing hope. Comments were flowing in from across human space, scientists demanding more research, philosophers debating the nature of consciousness, families of missing explorers asking if their loved ones lived on in some way within Snow's kind. But then Chen's urgent voice cut through the broadcast. "Captain, 7th Battle Group dropping out of hyperspace. Admiral Harrison is hailing us directly." Elena reluctantly paused the broadcast to take the communication. Admiral Harrison's weathered face appeared on screen, his expression grim. "Captain Vasquez, you are ordered to evacuate immediately. Orbital bombardment commences in 30 minutes. "Admiral, with respect, the entire human race is watching this first contact. These beings pose no threat when properly understood. They could revolutionize our approach to psychological trauma and grief counseling. Captain, I have my orders. These creatures killed 800 colonists. That cannot go unanswered." Elena looked at Maya, who had been listening to the exchange. The girl whispered something to Snow, and the massive panther's eyes began to glow brighter. "Admiral," Elena said, making a decision that would define her legacy. "What if I could bring back the colonists?" Harrison's eyes narrowed. "Explain." Maya stood up, still connected to Snow's consciousness. "The people aren't gone," she said, her voice carrying Snow's otherworldly harmonics. "They're here, within us, their sadness transformed into peace. We can return them, but they will be changed. They will remember the deep dark, and they will understand death differently than before." Elena felt the weight of possibility. "Admiral, request permission to attempt a retrieval of the absorbed colonists." "You have 10 minutes, Captain. After that, I follow my orders regardless of the consequences." Elena nodded to Dr. Martinez, who began recording frantically as the 4 children joined hands around Snow. The other white panthers formed a circle around them, their combined purring creating a harmonic frequency that seemed to resonate with reality itself. Maya's voice rose above the sound, carrying the voices of all the panthers. "We call back the absorbed ones. We return what was taken in ignorance. We give back the sadness that makes them human. The air in the clearing began to shimmer. Translucent figures started to materialize. The missing colonists, their forms ghostly at first, but growing more solid by the moment. Elena watched in amazement as 800 people gradually returned to physical existence, but they were changed. Their eyes held a depth of understanding that spoke of having touched the fundamental nature of existence. They moved with a calmness that came from having faced death and returned. And when they looked at Snow and the other Panthers, there was no fear, only gratitude and recognition. Dr. Thomas Brennan, the colony's former administrator, was among the first to solidify completely. He looked around the clearing with wonder, then directly into the broadcast camera. "We were not killed," he said, his voice carrying an otherworldly serenity. "We were transformed, taught, shown the connections between all conscious beings. Snow's kind are not predators. They are teachers who came to us too soon, before we were ready to learn." The colonists began to speak, each sharing their experience of existence within the collective consciousness of Snow's species. They described a realm where individual grief merged with universal understanding, where the pain of loss was transmuted into compassion for all suffering beings. Elena watched the viewer statistics explode as word of the colonists' return spread across human space. The impossible had happened. Death had been reversed, not through technology, but through the power of emotional connection between species. Admiral Harrison's voice crackled over the communication array. "Captain, I'm receiving direct orders from Colonial Command to stand down. It seems the President of the Colonial Council wants to personally negotiate with these beings." Elena felt a surge of triumph, but Maya's next words brought her back to the present. "Snow says this is just the beginning," the girl announced. "There are others in the deep dark, consciousnesses from many species, all carrying the sadness of those who died alone. Snow's kind want to learn from humans how to heal instead of absorb, how to help instead of consume." Dr. Martinez looked up from her instruments, her face filled with awe. "Captain, the implications are staggering. We're not just looking at first contact with one species. We're looking at potential contact with the collective unconscious of the entire galaxy." Elena looked around at the scene before her. Human children playing with creatures born from humanity's deepest sorrows. Colonists returned from a form of death that had taught them wisdom beyond normal understanding. Scientists documenting evidence that would reshape every field from psychology to philosophy to physics. "Chen, open a channel to Colonial Command," Elena ordered. "Tell them Captain Elena Vasquez requests permission to establish Kepler 442b as humanity's first embassy to the deep dark." As the alien sun set behind the crystalline forest, painting everything in shades of gold and silver, Elena watched Maya curl up against Snow's massive side for another night's rest. The White Panther's purring created a lullaby that seemed to sing of hope, of understanding bridging impossible differences, and of humanity's greatest discovery, that in the vast darkness between stars, they were not alone in their grief, and therefore not alone in their potential for healing. The broadcast continued through the night, carrying the story across human space. By morning, Kepler 442b would become the most famous world in the galaxy, and humanity would begin to understand that their greatest strength was not their technology or their weapons, but their capacity to form bonds of love and understanding with beings so different from themselves that they had been born from death itself. Snow's eyes glowed gently in the darkness, watching over the sleeping child who had taught an entity born from cosmic sadness how to feel joy. And in that simple scene, Elena saw the future of human expansion among the stars, not as conquerors, but as healers, teachers, and bridges between the living and the spaces between life where consciousness dwells eternal. The White Panther had terrified everyone until it allowed one wandering girl to rest upon its back, But through that simple act of trust, both species had learned something that would echo through eternity, that love and understanding could triumph over fear and death, and that the bonds between conscious beings transcended the boundaries of species, dimension, and existence itself.